presentation. Elizabeth Christman is here, and I'm not going to introduce her, but I want you to realize that on your table, you've got a resume in this blue sheet. Take a look at her impressive background, and Cheryl's going to give a much deeper introduction. We will be having the speaker presentation. We'll be having questions. So if something comes up, you can raise your hand immediately, but also write it down for the questions at the end of the program. And then 8:15 tonight, we will be wrapping it up. Just want to make a couple of things to say. I got a call, an email from one of our captains who was concerned because he was getting in touch with the customer who did the captain request. And after a call and an email and a text, got no response from the requester. And it was frustrating for him. And I said, well, I've had the same experience on several occasions. And it could be, too, that a captain had taken the position and failed to notify the job board that the position was full. So it could be that the customer was getting call after call after call of a position that they already had a contract for and just started ignoring the calls. So on our side of the issue, let's make sure that when we fill a position, we let the job board know that that position is full so no one else goes in and tries to contact the customer for that job. We can go to the next slide. A few more, okay. I've got control of that, do I? Thank you. I'm the Tony Tomasello. I'm the president of the organization. Davis Jones. Davis, are you here? Vice President. Greg Pabst. Greg, okay. Bob Thompson. Oh yeah, sold out. You're sold out of the 50-50 already? Okay. But Greg is going to be selling 50-50 raffle tickets, and that will be drawn before the end of the program. So get your chances. And then Carl Bard is our treasurer. Carl's not here. Bob Thompson was at the table when you came in. He's the fellow that gave you the name tag. We have a communication director, Mike Clark, continuing ed, Mike Dillon, jobs program, Laura Olson. Okay. And the membership, Phil Gaither. I don't think Phil is here. We have our program manager. And before I just pass over Cheryl's name, I want to acknowledge the hard work that she does. Very persistent. And she's dedicated to this program director position. She's done a wonderful job. Thank you. Let's see, Dave. We have members at large. Hillary Howes, we have here helping us with the slides. Alan Karpus is the boat show director, and Robert Doolittle. Is Robert here? Very good. Okay, Robert. These are members at large. We just started doing that this year. We have 3 members at large. Next slide. Oh, I've got it. Since January, the 27th was our last meeting. Since then, we have 4 new members. Are there any new members here tonight? Very good. Can you just stand up and give us your name? Chris Yearwood, thank you very much for joining and for your participation. We now have about 332, 333 members in CAPCA, so we're as big as we've ever been, and we seem to be growing. Thanks in large part to the boat show presentations, that we have booths at the boat shows, and I want to thank Alan for taking over and getting things going. And keep pushing that boat show group to make sure that we have a booth at the boat show. We have positions at the boat show filled, but Alan keeps telling me as soon as he gets them filled, somebody calls up and says, "Oh, I'm not going to be able to make it." So keep responding to Alan, even though right now the booth is fully staffed. Okay. And I want to do one more thing before I leave the podium, and that is thank Alan for the wonderful work he did for the continuing education. There were quite a few of us who were at the CPR meeting, which was just last week. And Alan is not only a good instructor, but he's a good administrator. The day after, the program was on a Saturday. The day after that, I was able to download my card from the American Heart Association. So that means that Alan on Saturday night or Sunday morning sent in the names of all the captains that were at that meeting so they could go online, print their card, and have that in their wallet when the Coast Guard shows up and says, "Are you currently certified with your CPR?" Okay, and I'm sorry I screwed the slideshow up entirely, but the next presenter, the next person at the podium is Cheryl. And again, thanks Cheryl for all the work that she does.
Thanks, Tony. I also have an awesome committee, and they're all here tonight, so I'm going to ask them to stand up. Bob Thompson, who greeted you at the front desk. Hillary, who's frantically trying to get our AV back up. And Dave, where's Dave? Dave's back there, Dave Oler. So I think while we're waiting for this would be a great time to do the 50-50 raffle. I caught Greg with his mouth full, but anybody want to buy a raffle ticket that hasn't yet? Okay, Dave over there in the back. One more customer. Oh, two customers. All right. While they're doing that, so we don't waste too much time, I'll also say on your tables, we don't have one for everybody, but we did put a few of these out. So if you see the blue sheets, those are letting you know what the upcoming programs are. And we also have a tour coming up. And the tour is June 11th. It has not been put on the website yet, but it will be put up soon. We can take a minimum of 12. And so if we only have 11, we can't do the tour. And it's as many as 16. This is $90. We know that's a lot, but it goes directly to preserving the lighthouse. This is what they charge anybody that signs up for a tour of the lighthouse. So they have to put us on a boat, take us 30 minutes out to the lighthouse. We tour the lighthouse, and then we come back. So, and they have to have a captain do it, right? So we did have at least 10 of you at the January meeting say you were interested in this tour, even at $90. So just wanted to let you know that when that is up, we will send a constant contact out so that you know, and we would suggest that you sign up as soon as possible. If we do not get enough members to sign up, we will then open it for members to bring guests. And that's what we did last week. Can I see a show of hands how many people toured the John W. Brown and the Savannah last week? Was that not an awesome tour? I mean, both of those. So for that one, we were limited to 35 people. We opened it to, so we had, I think 27 or 28 members sign up. Then when we didn't get the 35, we opened it for those members to add a guest, and we got up to 35 that way. So that's how we'll do the lighthouse tour as well. So but we're going to give it a 2-week notice, I think. This one was took a lot of work. So want a little bit more time next time. And in April, now that we have our slide up, thank you, Hillary. In April, we have the Thomas Point Shoal Lighthouse Tour. I'm sorry, the tour is in June. We have David Gendell speaking about it at our April meeting. This will be Zoom only. We don't meet again in person like this until June. So in April, we'll have Dave talk about the lighthouse. He's also written the only book dedicated to this lighthouse. And it is the lighthouse's 150th anniversary. Is that right? Yes. So really excited to, oh yeah, it says that. Celebrates his 150th birthday this year. So we're excited to have him speak. We are currently confirming our speakers for both May and June, so it's too early to tell you who those are yet, but we've got some in the making. One of them is a federal agency, and we're having difficulty getting responses back in time. So that's part of what we're having to juggle around. So we just need to give them a little bit of time so that they can get back to us. All right. So I think we're still selling 50/50s. Can we go to the next slide? I think that is the, oh no, oh yes, I forgot, I threw this in here. For those of you who weren't on the tour, and even if you were, we have some images from the John W. Brown on the left and the Savannah on the right. And we just had the most perfectly gorgeous, beautiful weather day. And we planned this. It's been 2.5 months in the making. I think I reached out to them literally the first week of January, and we had to pick a date and to have it be just as great as it was. The one thing I will do is to give our 50/50 guy a little bit more time to count all the money over there. Okay. The John W. Brown, I know that there was some discussion with some of the people who attended the tour. Alan, I think you and Chuck Thompson, I don't think Chuck is here, talked about maybe trying to see if we could actually get a tour on the Brown when she goes out. So I wanted to let you all know that she is going out with a big public attendance on, I think it's May 24th. Maybe someone can look that up. Is that right? I think it's May 24th. The cost, I believe, is around $225 each, somewhere in there. They have sold up to 400 tickets so far, 450. And I believe we heard the other day she can hold 650, 700 paid passengers. So she is going out for an all day, and the guests will be picked up at the Maryland Cruise Terminal. So I'm just letting all of you know, if that is of interest for you, that is happening. And there's also some other events planned, like flyovers and all sorts of things planned. It's a very, very big day. So it's not just an average day of taking the John W. Brown out. So anyway, just wanted to let you know that. The Savannah, and I also got the question about the $15 that we paid for both these tours. All $15 went to the John W. Brown. That they charged $20 for anyone to come in and tour their boat, and they gave us a discounted rate of $15 because we had a group tour. So just know that's where all your money went to. We did not get charged to go on the Savannah, but the Savannah required a list of all of the people attending first, and as you know, they checked you off as you came in and as you left, and we had to be escorted around on that boat. So we were shipped. So we were very excited to have that opportunity with the Savannah, because that's not something that happens as easily. It is the 24th. Thank you. Thanks, Rob. It is Memorial Day weekend. Thank you. And oh yes, there's another one in September, in the fall, September 13th. Thank you. So if you're interested in the John W. Brown, you do have a couple of options. You can also tour on your own for the $20 and get I guess a similar tour that we did. Although I think we really got the really in-depth tour that they knew that captains would want to know. All right, Greg, are you ready? Okay, I got to find my tickets. I don't take a door prize ticket, by the way, but I do contribute cash to the, all right. Oh, yeah. Oh, perfect. Thank you, Aaron. Okay, for those online, we are pulling the 50-50. Say it again. 341. Who has 341? All right, Mindy. And how much does Mindy take home? Do we know? 50 some dollars, $55? Not so bad. All right. Thank you very much. Thanks, Greg, for helping us with that 50-50. All right. And with that, I am going to turn it over to Dave Oler to introduce our next speaker. And by the way, the door prize gets drawn at the end, and you do need to be present to win, and that's the blue ticket.
Thank you, Sharon. All right. So we've all seen those ships going up and down the bay. Better? We've all seen those ships going up and down the bay. And we've probably had those questions of like, how do you drive that thing? How do you dock that thing? Who drives that thing? How wrong is it when someone says, well, I'm a sailboat, so that freighter has to yield to me? We're going to find out how wrong they are. What's it like being a new hire at a job you've worked so hard for, and your first real day on the job is pretty hairy situation? Is that a fair way to describe it? What's it like being a manager, getting a phone call in the middle of the night about one of your employees? Similar to us in that she delivers boats for money up and down the pay. Dissimilar, similar but different. She doesn't have to drive to derelict marinas all over the bay. Similar to us, she is licensed by the Coast Guard. Different, her license is unlimited. Unlimited tonnage, unlimited oceans. A couple quick ground rules. We know there's been a fair amount of shipping news in the news here on the bay. We can't share insider information with that. And at our guest request, please don't ask about pay. So with that, I'd like to introduce Captain and Senior Pilot and Vice President of the Maryland Pilot Association, Captain Beth Christman.
Got it. That one needs to go. That one off. Okay. This one. Am I far enough away? Good. All right. Well, good evening, everybody. I think I talked to you about, I think we thought 3-4 years ago, right? Via Zoom during COVID. So hopefully, I met with Dave previously, so he kept me on track, so I didn't repeat any slides that I have on my slideshow. There it is. So I'm going to talk about few different things, more about the organization, the Association of Pilots, maybe a few little random things here and there. And at the end, we'll do questions. I'll tell you some sea stories, and that'll be more fun. So I'll get through my presentation and we can have some fun. I can't discuss the Dolly. That's one thing I can't discuss. There's still an active investigation and we're involved in it, obviously. So that's one thing I can't talk about details, but honestly, you guys know as much as I know because it's, pretty much been out there in the NTSB and everything else. So, all right. Come on, you can do it. Nope. Maybe I'm not gonna. It turned. I learned. I figured you press the bottom one. I have to laugh because I think every time I've given a talk, either like there's a power outage, there's no internet, the computer dies, something happens. So I always have my own little thing here. But I was trying to be good and not read my slides, right? So we do kind of need them. And I think when we were on our Zoom call, I had trouble getting it up in the Zoom. It was one of my first times doing a Zoom call. But I can talk a little bit about me if the slide comes up. This will be my last year as a pilot, right? I'm at the end of my career. I've been a pilot for 29 plus years now, and February 1 of 2026 will be 30 years. So I'll hang up my pilot helmet and safety gear at that point and move into the retirement mode. Who knows what I'll do there? I certainly won't be doing nothing. So I've got a lot of things I want to do. Yes.
Is it mandatory retirement after 30?
No. Nope. Your body tells you when it's time. When you become older, yeah, it's much more difficult. The late nights, the climbing the ladders, getting off ships when it's 30 knots of wind on a pilot ladder. So yeah. So anyways, like I said, have been a pilot for 30 years. Before I became a pilot, I went to SUNY Maritime College. Got a couple of my cronies over here. They're a year behind me, the twins, Chris and Adam. So they're very familiar with going through that program. Anyways, I sailed for 9 years. I worked on cruise ships. I worked on tugboats. I worked on tankers, and I worked back at my school on training ships in those 9 years and got my unlimited master's license. One thing that I was gonna do is, I gotta remember which button is the pointer. See if I can do it. That one. That right there is a Carnival Pride. It's a cruise ship. I'll talk a little bit more on my slides as I go along about what types of ships those are. So in addition to being a pilot, I've been on the board of supervisors with the association, 10 years as the secretary, 4 years as the vice president. I'm now back to the rank of being a bay pilot up and down the bay, which is great to slide into retirement. I also was on the state board of pilots and the incident committee. That's a 4-year term. I did that during my career. And I also was on one of our favorite things. I was on a Coast Guard committee that dealt with the mariner medical credentials and MedMac, right? Working with the National Maritime Center, which I'm sure some of you know, you probably had to submit your paperwork to. So I was the one that was always saying, hey, the website doesn't work, the fact stuff isn't good on there. So slowly but surely the Coast Guard's improved it. So it's just interesting. There we go, now it works. So a little bit of overview, Dave and I talked about, that's what I would talk a little bit more about the operation of the Association of Maryland Pilots. So we're responsible to the state of Maryland for piloting ships on the Chesapeake Bay, which also includes, I just talked to some of the ladies earlier, it also includes the Virginia waters from Smith Point south to the Sea Buoy, right? So we cover a total of 200 nautical miles, and we're all independent contractors, and we're members of the Association of Maryland Pilots. The Public Service Commission is the one that sets our pilotage rates, and we bill our customers, all the ships that come and go, all the movements that we do, and that's how we fund the association, pay our bills, pay our employees, and pay our pilots. It's pretty simple. It's pretty laid out the same way most pilot groups in the United States. That's how it works. So that's that. Now, the story on this slide here, I'm on that ship, and Captain Allison Ross is on this ship. These are LNG tankers. I'm outbound from Cove Point. She's inbound. One of our apprentices took it. It's a beautiful day. I mean, look at the clouds and you don't see the bay like that too often. So when you do, you always appreciate how awesome it is out there. So that's a great photo. I love that one. I did show you this slide last time, but I just wanted to show it again so you understood, here's the Chesapeake Bay and here's the Delaware Bay. So we have a big operation that we have, the Association of Maryland Pilots, which requires us to have more stations, more boats, more vehicles, and more pilots, most other associations, right? To make sure we have people at all times. There's people up in Baltimore. Our mid-base station is down here, Pax River, And then down here, in Virginia at Lynn Haven those are probably our three major stations. So I'll go over a little bit more about that. So right now, this slide is up by one. We actually have 11 limited license pilots, or traditionally we call them junior pilots. So we have 57 unlimited and basically 68 working turns. And then we have 10 pilots in training, and they're riding with us and learning the routes, learning the trades, learning how to handle ships, how to dock and undock. So it's pretty good. We also have the stations. I discussed those in my last talk. 7 stations throughout the bay. At those locations, there's usually a boat there, at least one, if not a few more. Our pilot launches are there. And our employees, we have through Maryland and Virginia, station managers, launch operators, tower personnel, office staff, drivers, dispatchers. So we have a pretty big operation that we run. So how do we run it? Well, we have up in Baltimore is our main office, Dillon Street, or as some of you may know, Highland Town. It's the old National Bohemia beer office right on Dillon Street. So there we have 2 administrative pilots, our president and our first vice president. They're the administrative pilots. They're in the office running the show. We have 4 other board members on the board of directors. We have the second vice president who liaises with all the, federal and state agencies dealing with the surveys and weather, the NOAA, all the things that we all have the benefit of now, right? The air gap sensors and all those kind of things. So that second vice president does that. He's also a working turn. The launch operations is handled by our treasurer, who obviously keeps an eye on the money, and also is our marine superintendent. And we have 11 pilot boats. Right now, 2 are being built up in Massachusetts at Gladding and Hearn. I've forgotten when we're taking delivery. I used to know that information, but I think it's been a little delayed with some things, but we're probably going to get one by the end of this year and one beginning of next year. So that's what is going. So let's see, who am I on? The launch operations. So then the next one is our secretary. I was the secretary for a while. We're in charge of all the IT, all the PPUs, which are portable pilot units. Those are those navigation units that we carry with us up and down the bay, which probably none of you have seen, but you know what an ECDIS and on your own, boats that you use, how important those are for giving us real-time data, right? No more charting. I actually was on a ship that had a chart the other day and they had no ECDIS. And I said, how are you guys without all the latest and greatest? And they were 9,999 tons. The regulation is 10,000. So it was a small little ship. So it's the first time in probably several years that I've seen a ship with just charts. So anyways, it's going by the wayside. We'll talk a little bit more about technology. Then we also have our harbor representative on the board, and he does all the, liaising with the port terminals, the public and the private, and also with the tugboat companies, and mostly dealing with all the movements in the harbor and getting the information to the docking pilots on the docking list. So that kind of leads me into, I get asked, how are pilots dispatched? We have 2 lists now. It's a bay list, a harbor list. And just to simplify things, usually 2/3 of us are working and 1/3 of us are off. And so we rotate. So you go to work, you do 3 jobs, you go to the bottom of the list. Go to work, do 3 jobs, go to the bottom of the list. When your name comes up, you're the next one up, you go to the job. So it seems simple, and it is simple until you have to wait for when all the ships final up and the ship sail when you're going to get your assignment. So you get a little anxious as soon as your name is getting to the top of the list where you're going to go, because you can go you can go through the canal, you can go down the bay, you can shift the ship. If you're in the harbor, you can have different assignments. So And they all require different things of us, right? Some trips are longer than others. Some harbor jobs are longer, need more tugs depending on the wind. So there's a lot of things that the pilots need to know, and our station managers and launch operators when we're working, going around the bay. So basically, when we get called to work, we go to the office. A driver takes us to a terminal. We get on a ship, we go to work. If we're on the bay list, we go down the bay, through the canal. If you're on the harbor list, you're doing all the work around the harbor. And so there's harbor shifts, or a ship coming all the way up the bay. They've been on the ship for 10 hours. The harbor list pilot will meet you at the, as we call it now, the Key Bridge site, since there's no bridge anymore. And the docking pilot will take over and bring the ship to the berth. So, our station managers and our launch operators, they're really important to us. And they're all captains, like most of you guys, have your, 100-ton, and they're really professional watermen. They know what, and then we just have to train them about pilot ladders and, going alongside moving ships with our launches that are built to do that. So it's pretty good. We have a good training program. Like I say, our station managers, they take good care. That's actually a picture of one of them. That's my dog. I had to just put a picture of my dog in there for fun. You can't really see it, but this is our executive assistant, and his dog is sitting up on the credenza there. So we're a dog-friendly business. Anyways. My next slide here is kind of a random slide of just questions I get asked a lot. And I'll talk about the ships there at the end. But the first is, the captain is in charge of the ship in the Chesapeake Bay, only in the Panama Canal. And I think there's one other location where, the pilot's in charge of the whole ship. But for the most part, we're in charge of the movement of the vessel, right? Like, I don't know if the crew is properly trained or rested. I don't know if the engine maintenance has been done correctly. I have no idea. But when we get on board, we do the master pilot exchange, and we always ask, Captain, is everything working? Is there anything you need to report? And they usually are pretty good. Not always. You find some stuff out as you get going. It usually reveals itself pretty quickly. So anyways, up on the bridge, we're the person in charge of the movement of the vessel. We'll be up there with a watch officer, the captain, could be definitely a helmsman, and could be a lookout. So, 3 to 4 ship's crew are with us usually up on the bridge when we're doing our job up and down the Chesapeake Bay. Additionally, one thing that's kind of unique about us, we work closely with the Delaware pilots and the Virginia pilots, and we do pilot exchanges. Some of you may be familiar with Chesapeake City, where the ships pass up there near the Chesapeake City Bridge. That's almost a state line. So we'll switch out with the Delaware pilots. That's the route that we call east or west. If we're going westbound, we're going towards Baltimore. Eastbound, we're going towards, heading over to Philly or down the Delaware Bay. A lot of times the car ships will take that. It saves them a little bit of time, and it's worth it. With they'll weigh the cost of pilotage with the fuel costs. So they'll use the canal to shorten that up. Or if they're worried about bad weather, sometimes they can dodge through the canal and miss some bad weather if they're going to have it. Naval vessels, this is another question. Do they have to have pilots? U.S. vessels do not. But oftentimes they do, because they don't come up to Annapolis very often. So they don't mind coming up and taking a pilot, so we'll always help them get up the bay. Or if it's operations, sail every other year, that's another time that we see a lot of work. Technology advances, are we going to need pilots anymore? Not in my lifetime, I don't think. But, maybe there'll be a day that there'll be a ship coming up with no people on it, and it just comes up the ceiling. Who knows? But I think it's a long time coming. It's a lot they have to flesh out at the IMO, and all the countries have to agree how they're going to do this, internationally. So it'll probably take some time, but they're definitely testing. You've seen them out there. Our Navy is doing it. We see them out there. I know Chris and I have seen them on the testing stuff out in the middle of the bay. You always see some weird stuff every so often. So, yeah. But like I say, I don't think it's coming really soon, but maybe. I've seen a lot of changes just in the 30 years I've been a pilot. So transit the bay, the ships do it day and night. I sometimes get asked like at nighttime, but you guys all in here know we go up and down the bay all night, all holidays. Ships are always moving. So here's my, I'm outbound on this deep load of coal. It's 47.6 on the draft, or 14.4 meters. The inbound is, he's got some ballast. He's not totally light, but he's inbound to the berth that I've been to. See the ice from this winter? We had a little slush up there this year. This is not often, but we do get ice. But these are bulk carriers. So that's my last thing. This is a picture. It's not a freighter. We don't have freighters anymore. Most of you, again, probably know that. We have car ships, cruise ships, container ships, ro-ro ships. Everything's kind of specialized. There's not too many general cargo ships out there. But the ship that didn't have the ECDIS and everything and was less than 10,000 gross tons, they were a general cargo ship. So I just had a general cargo ship the other day. Go figure. All right, so it's Women's History Month. So we do have female pilots. We've got 3 in the Chesapeake Bay. This is me, Allison Buckler, and this is a Bulgarian second mate on the ship. So it's rare to have 3 of us. So we clicked a quick selfie. But we see more and more women out there on the ships. I mean, when I first started, I used to, get a flashlight shown in my face. You're a woman. How do you become a pilot? Is your dad a pilot? And I'm like, nope, I just wanted to go to sea. I can tell you more about that when we're asking questions, because you'll probably have some. And then these are all some of the first female pilots. Obviously, there's me. This is Holly Cooper from Houston, Allison Ross Schulte from Maryland, and Colleen Moran from Delaware, which is really weird because I just got a text she's training over at My Tags and wanted to go out and grab a drink. So maybe I'll see her in the next day or two. I believe she's getting ready to retire, and Holly is retired. Allison and I are still working. Me, not for much longer. I can't answer for Allison, but yeah. So it's pretty good. We got the new generation of ladies coming through. We used to have, when we all started, there was only 5 or 6 of us, female pilots in the United States. Now there's over 30. I think it's getting close to 40 that I'm aware of. And, there's 1,200 pilots that do what we do in the United States. So it's more and more out there. Container ships. Those are the big container ships meeting. You see our range lights over here. So that's just a nice picture. Not a nice picture of the weather, but I got off this ship and clicked that picture on my way in on the launch. So anyways, I've really enjoyed my career here. The port's a great place to work. If people, there seems to be always something to do, some job to have there. And I've enjoyed it. And I'm going to thank you for having me. And now you can ask me questions, because it'll probably be more fun. And I can tell you a few sea stories that go along with it when you ask me. Hopefully I didn't bore you too much.
So what we're going to ask you to do, because we have people on Zoom. So first we're going to ask if there are any questions from the Zoom. Not yet? Okay. All right. So what we'd like for you to do is come up to the microphone and speak. Please don't ask any questions from where you are, because it's just blank space for those. And we've got 20 some people on Zoom. So please come, raise your hand, and then Elizabeth will recognize you, and then you can come up and ask your question, or just make line, whatever you want to do, but you have to do it from here. Got it?
A lot of rules and
All right.
regulations.
Okay.
Yeah, go. Since you're the president, you get first dibs.
Before I ask my question, I'm going to tell a cute story. My brother-in-law was a Bay pilot, and she knows my brother-in-law. And when my sister was engaged to Jack Davis, she would say, when people asked her, what does your fiance do? Well, he takes boats up and down the bay. And he would say, they're ships, Libby. They're ships. We put boats on ships.
Right, exactly.
But the question I have is, when you're sailing up through Annapolis, I'm sure there's a lot of sailboats and power boats that are thinking maybe I have the right of way because I'm a sailboat. What is your point of vision ahead of the ship? How far ahead of the ship? Is it a blind spot where you can't see a boat that's coming up?
Oh, it can be quite far. It depends on where you are on the bridge, right? So car ship, you're up, the bridge is right there on the car ship where the bulk carrier is way back, or especially container ship. If you're, back near the stern, you got a lot of containers. It can be, like over 1,000 feet that you have a blind spot up there. So we don't see, I think at my last talk, I showed you a couple of good pictures where all I see is just maybe the top of a mast and I can't see. Although to you guys down there, well, I got plenty of, I got 500 feet. Well, I can't see you. So it's very disconcerting. So we always, but we're always watching, like anything, our eyes are trained. I know people like to look at the AIS or whatever, but there's some just simple things that we always do. I mean, I can look, if I'm standing and piloting, it's my bearing. If I can kind of look out this way and I can identify what's out there. And if I see that the bearing is not changing and the range is decreasing, I can say that one's a problem, that one's a problem. Everything else can go, wherever. And so we're very good at doing that. I'm sure Chris can attest. He's also a retired Maryland pilot. So yeah, we're always very worried about when they go under our bow, because then we don't know. And even if it's a fast speedboat, you're like, well, what if you lose their engine? I've had that where you don't see them come out and you're like, oh my goodness, am I gonna, is he gonna clear? So that's all. I mean, we can't, as you know, we can't stop like fast. At that point, it's just throwing the rudder over one way or the other and hoping you can kind of wiggle around them a little bit. Yep. So that's that. Back in the back. The past president.
We're all over the place.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier about the shifts that you all work. Where are you waiting for your shift? Is there like a ready room or an area you're at home and you get the call and they
Yeah.
pick you up, or how does that work?
There's several ways. It kind of, we know what ships are coming. We have a pretty good idea. Now they have to let the Coast Guard know 96 hours out when they're coming and all that. So down at Cape Henry, we have a pretty good idea. I mean, sometimes weather slows people up when they're coming or going, but where are we? Well, when I'm starting my rotation, I might be at home and might get called at 1400 for a 1600 sailing. But if it's going to be a midnight job, I might go in the office, after I have my dinner and sleep in the office. We have sleeping quarters in those offices. That third floor in Baltimore, we got darkening shades, sleep machines. I mean, we are very serious about our rest in between our steps. So if, for instance, let's just say I go southbound on a ship, I get to Cape Henry, I have my rest period, I sleep on station, my rest period's up, and then I can come bring a ship up. But down at Cape, as we call it, Cape Henry, or the Lynn Haven station, we also have, darkening shades. We have a whole wing where there's just, 2 floors of rooms where pilots sleep and keep it pretty quiet. So that's what we do. So in each station, we've done a pretty good job of providing good resting areas for pilots, and even for like our drivers, if they have to drive down to, say, as we call it, PTS, the pilot transfer station at Solomon's. there's a station there where they can kick their feet up and rest while they're waiting for us to, do a swap out, or, because we can take a relief midway on the bay too, at the mid-bay station. So that gives us another spot to rest or work the Cove Point jobs out of there. So we have lots of sleeping quarters, lots of, and we have drivers that drive us. Some places you don't have that in other pilot groups, but since it's such a long drive, we don't want people driving 2 hours on the road and then, getting an hour's sleep and getting on a ship. So we have drivers that drive and then try and give us a little sleep before we get every assignment. Yeah. You next. Oh, Adam's coming.
So Beth, I'm sure there's some folks out here thinking, hey, I could become a bay pilot. What's the
Right.
process to become a bay pilot?
So the state of Maryland, you have to go to a maritime school and get a third mate's license, right? Unlimited tonnage, or you do the hawsepipe route where you start as a seaman and work your way up to master, and you're sailing master. And now also we have master of ship assist tugboats that we've added in there once we merged with the docking pilots. So we're all one big happy family now. And so that's how you become a pilot. And we have a board of the state board of pilots. Probably every 2 years, we've gotten in a routine. Every 2 years, we do a bunch of interviews. We get a list together of about 15 people. And then in that 2 years, we kind of look at as the retirements go, we pull from those lists and fill in with, and it takes us 5 years to get an unlimited pilot like me. So you're 2 years as an apprentice pilot, you got to pass all your Coast Guard exams, you got to memorize 9 charts. Although now that we've gone to electronic charts, I can't say 9 charts. It actually is more like 30, but the way it's panning out. But anyways, you draw your charts, pass all them 90%. And then after 2 years of riding with senior pilots and everybody checks off on you, then you can be a junior pilot. And that's all by draft. So 31 foot, well, it's actually 32, 36 and 42. I think that's how we got it now. I've forgotten how we raised it up, but that's how we do our junior pilots. And usually that works pretty well by draft, because the bigger ships, greater draft. So they bump up year by year. So it takes 3 years going through those different licenses, and then you become a senior pilot. And then you can do everything. Yes.
Give you a twofer.
Okay.
First of all, we always, hear about small craft advisories and gale warnings and things like that. For those little boat guys, it's, we kind of understand for the large ships, what are your absolute limits as far as weather conditions where you can transit either up or down the bay? And second of all, sea story time, what's the worst conditions you ever sailed in?
Well, there you go. Dave led into that. I told Dave my sea story. I'll tell you it as well. So it's interesting. It'll depend on the ship, right? So, these car ships have a lot of windage, the container ships, small craft advisories, not so bad for us. Maybe not even for my pontoon boat. I'll have to test that. But anyways, we watch the weather very carefully, and it's the wind gusts that'll get you, right? Especially up in the harbor when people are trying to dock and undock. And also, it seems like all our piers, right? In the winter, we get those heavy northwesterlies, and a lot of our piers just are, set up horribly for northwest wind in the for docking and stuff. So we do watch it. It requires like the harbor guys to use more tugboats and be cognizant of those gusts. So yes, we do watch out we're always watching the weather. If you have you guys ever used the ports system with NOAA? And we use that a lot. That's like real-time data coming to us from sensors that we have around the bay. There's a couple in the harbor. One used to be on the Key Bridge. And now we use all those very closely. Like the other day when I brought that cruise ship up, the Carnival Pride, the master's limit was, he said he didn't want anything over 20, if anything over 25 knots, he wanted a tugboat. So I ordered the tugboats because it was right around the 25 knots. And they've got a lot of wind area, even though they've got the fancy, bow thrusters and everything on them. They needed a tugboat up there to dock in especially the wind direction, because that also can be the component. There's the direction of the wind on the face, whether it's blowing you on the pier, off the pier, down the pier. So all of those things come into play. So wind's extremely important. And then also, the thunderstorms in the summer that come through. I can't tell you how many times we know a front's coming through, and I've called when I was vice president, I'd call the agents and say, hey, if you're Dundalk number 13 or 12, you need to tell those captains to get double lines out. But sure as enough, they'll not put them out or, forget or whatever. And they get blown right off the pier. So yeah, even when they're at the berth. So sometimes, yeah, the weather can really wreak havoc. But for me, to answer your second question, the worst conditions I've ever boarded in were Cape Henry. It was my very first time as a junior pilot going north on a ship. When I came down the bay, the nor'easter was gearing up, and one of the senior pilots told me, Beth, now when you get down there and you go through the Chesapeake Bay Bridge tunnel with this ship, it was a little Dutch ship, so it wasn't very deep draft. He said, you point right at Cape Henry Light, and you go over the Thimblesole Channel, and you turn that ship out to sea, and then you get off real quick before you get out of the lee of the land. He said, so I did that, and I was like, wow, that was pretty nasty. And then I got my rest. I woke up, it was, 2 a.m. I was getting a car ship, and the car ship came in, and it was blowing 80 knots. 80. That was, back then, we didn't close the port. We didn't do that. And we even had our older launches, smaller launches that we have that now you see up here in Annapolis stuff, the Helmatic. So I went out, it was blowing. We're going out there, and it usually takes 20 minutes. It took us over an hour to get to the ship. And the captain called on the radio and said, thank you, pilot, for coming out. Thank you. I'll try and give you a good lee. The nice thing about a nor'easter is you can give a good lee inbound and outbound, right? It's northeast and just the way it is. So it was a big car ship at the time, not as big as this one now, but and I get up to the bridge, and it's a captain that I've had many times as an apprentice pilot. It was a pretty regular customer. And he said, oh, pilot. He said, you're by yourself now? And I said, yeah, that's right. I was this close to saying, this is my first trip north by myself. So I'm setting up my PPUs, the real old ones. And I'm like, God, this wind is really blowing, Captain. And he goes, well, look at the wind gauge, pilot. He goes, that has been pegged at 40 meters per second. And I'm like, well, what is that knots? He goes, 80 knots. I said, sustained? And he said, yes. He goes, I have not seen, I'm going to retire after this trip. He said, I've never seen the wind blow so hard, so bad in my life. And I was like, wow. I mean, it was bad. And I was lucky. I knew, I had looked at the time, we didn't have all these phones and fancy stuff. And I was like looking at my little sheet, and I was trying to see if I was going to meet any outbound ships. I was like, phew, I don't have to meet anybody, until later. And so it was blowing, and we were trying to I was lining up for the channel, and I realized, oh my God, I have to put the red buoys on my port bow, because it was just pushing me sideways. So I would just put the buoy on the red buoy on the port bow. By the time I got there, I was in the middle of the channel. I kept doing that. Made myself through the Chesapeake Bay. It was still like blowing 80. It was still pegged. And the captain was like, I cannot believe this is the worst weather I've ever been in. So that's my sea story. That was my first time. And I will tell you, I have never boarded in anything like that ever before, or hopefully not before I retire. I hope I never have to do that again. But when you're, 30 years old, you don't think too much about it. And it's funny because the launchman, it was this old guy, he's recently passed away. And the launchman and the deckhand were like, Beth, if we get you out there, you're going to get on that ship, right? Because we were beating ourselves up getting out there. And I don't get seasick, but I didn't feel so well. And I said, if you get me out there, I'm getting on that ship. And if you have to put your hands on my ass, you can. Just shove me up there because I'm getting on it. So that's what we did. And they laughed about that. But it's funny, about a month later, both of them, I was on a launch with them by myself, and they said, we've talked about this. That was the worst weather we've ever been out in. I said, it was about the worst I've ever been out in too. So I hope, so anyways, that's my sea story. So good question. Yeah.
So I'll start on a couple things coming on the Zoom chat. When you're docking or undocking, how are commands being given to the tugs, and who's issuing those commands?
Well, the docking pilot, and full disclosure, I'm one of the last bay pilots only, right? So Chris actually transitioned to doing harbor work. But yeah, the docking pilot will give the commands to the tugs. It's usually over the radio. I mean, they'll do some whistle signals sometimes. You'll hear them, the tugboat toot a whistle signal, but they'll give the commands over the radio to the tugs. And sometimes they'll have two, sometimes they have three, sometimes one, depending on the berth and the conditions and everything else. Sometimes they've had 4 or 5 on them. Yeah. Did I have somebody back here? Oh, yep. There we go.
What are actually, before the question, I sailboat race with the BCYA in the Baltimore Harbor. So I want to apologize on behalf of all of us if over the years we've ever interfered with your
Oh, yes. Very familiar with you guys.
I swear to you, RC sends out a warning every single Tuesday night.
I'll tell you a sea story about that too. But
anyway.
yeah, go ahead.
What are the boundary lines where you are, the pilot's required to get off or get on here, get off here? Are there separate pilots for like the Patapsco River versus the rest?
No, we'll change out. We actually recently, I say recently, but it probably was 10 years ago, we put in like near the Key Bridge where there's a pilot exchange, because like I said earlier, if I bring a car ship all the way up the bay, it takes me about 9 hours from the time I get on to get to the Key Bridge, right? So I shouldn't be docking a ship. That's 9 hours of work on a ship. So we have a harbor, they'll change there. Or if there's a ship, like I'm a bay pilot. I didn't do much of the docking when we merged. So what they'll do is a docking pilot will take me off, and then he'll get off around the Key Bridge. So they'll do that. Like I'm one of the last, as they call us now, all the young kids call us legacy bay pilots. So I'm one of those. So yeah, but we do change there, and like you'll see the pilot area down by Solomon's Island, there's a pilot exchange happens there for reliefs or for doing Cove Point work. And then down at Cape Henry, you'll see on the chart, there's a pilot, transfer area. Yes. I forgot to tell you my sea story. So I'll tell it really quick. So your sailing buddies, some of them were, sailing, and one of the pilots he was on the board with me. He was docking out, and they were backing out of a slip out of Clinton Street. And this sailboat comes and hits them, and they're barely moving, right? So it's like the sailboat hit them. They were racing. And all these people kind of tumble around, and he clicked some pictures, and then the crew is all upset because there's been a collision, and the pilot's like, I don't think we have to worry. I think they're okay. They were more embarrassed, right? And they took off. So like we have a board meeting like the next week, and one of the board members like, hey, my neighbor said they were all worried that they were going to get arrested because they hit a ship. So the other guy, the other board member goes, well, As a matter of fact, I have a little video and pictures, it's hilarious. But yeah, they called up their neighbor who was a bay pilot, like, am I going to get arrested? We hit a ship. We weren't paying attention. So yeah, it was one of your sailing folks. Anyways, now you're ready.
Fog.
Oh, fog. Yeah. Oh, we don't say that word. That's the F word. But yeah, fog. It's one of those things. We can do it in the fog. I mean, we probably a good guideline at this point we all use is probably a half mile. We're not going to be docking or undocking ships. We'll come up and down the bay. We can navigate pretty well with the radar and like that, unless it's opening day of rockfish season and it's foggy, then it can be a nightmare. But yeah, we'll operate in fog. It's not like unless it's like if I was coming up the bay and I had a big ultra large container vessel and it was socked in up in the harbor, I'm going to anchor Annapolis and wait until it clears. So yeah, that's what we do with fog. Kind of a half mile is our guideline.
So speaking of the little boats, most of us are on little boats. How should we be getting in contact with you? 16, 13, or?
Number one, stay out of the way. If it's big, stay away. Just get away. And I think a lot of times, you don't realize when you're on a small boat, how fast those ships are moving and how fast they come upon you, right? So just like anything, if you think you're going to be close, then just move away. But yeah, the best way to get us will always be like 13. If you look at rules of the road, that's what we use for ship to ship communications. Most of us will have our radio on dual watch for 16 too. Our house channel is 11 that we use. So we'll probably on the bridge, we'll have those 3 channels on, 11, 13, and 16 for Maryland pilots. Now the Virginia pilots, they also use 11. The Delaware pilots use 14 as their house channel. So not that you'll be up there a lot, but.
So kind of in the same vein, we frequently race on the bay, day and night. And, our preferred tack is right across your bow. And our navigator says we're going to go right up to it and tack. So what protocol are you looking for from sailors that know you're there, know the time to closest approach,
Right.
Know the CPA, but we're going to take it to the limit? Do you want us to call you and say, we're going to come right up to you and tack away?
I'd rather know that that's what you're going to do. I mean, you'll hear me. If I'm worried about you, I will call you on 16. Most pilots will. And if I'm really worried about you, you're going to hear my whistle, but I will come right up on you because I usually know that like I'm looking at you probably 6 miles, 6 miles out, right? I usually will see a little something, or sometimes now you guys have AIS, so that's helpful
On
too.
our boat, we're looking at you at 10 miles out.
Yeah.
And we're talking about this that far
Right.
away.
So if you know where you're gonna, you're gonna attack, when we get close, if it's just call, and we'll answer, because nowadays you have AIS, right? So you can click on us and I never thought I would like to have AIS with all the small boats, but it actually makes it a lot better for us because I can identify exactly who you are if you guys have AIS and just say, hey, the not golfing, get out of the way, And some people call when you're 8 miles away and you're like, I'm not looking at you at this point. Go ahead, Dave.
With respect to your vessel's speed and maneuverability, how far ahead are you making commands to your ship in terms of steering and power?
It can be over an hour sometime, depending on like if I'm coming up to Annapolis Anchorage, I'm starting to slow that ship down based on, it's a lot of things, right? Like how much mass does it have? Is it a big, ultra large container ship? That's going to take me forever to slow down. If it's a little, like a car ship or something lighter, it might not take so long. And if there's wind and all that other stuff. So, it does take us a long time, but I'll be thinking, well in advance for especially larger vessels. Can be over an hour. And you do have to think, like, for instance, I don't want to bring anything above the Bay Bridge if I'm not certain I have a berth, because the anchorages now are not big enough to handle a lot of the ships that we're bringing up there. So we have nowhere to go. Once we commit, we're committed. Yeah.
So when I teach outside of Annapolis, I instruct the students that you don't really know. That ship doesn't look like it's going very fast, but on my estimate is you guys are making at least 13 to 18 knots until you get to the Bay Bridge.
It's probably fair. Yep.
And that's when you start slowing down for the.
Yeah, we usually will slow down, all of us near the Bay Bridge, for a lot of reasons.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Oh, got a couple of it.
What does a work week or work assignment look like? We know you take 3 in a row and then you're off. You work at one direction and then you're on the next one in, or what does a
It
work week-
depends on how busy we are. I can kind of give you, it's like this old way that we always figure if we're busy or not. But now with Trade Point Atlantic coming on and the port expanding, we actually are doing more and more ships, right? So it's changing a little bit. But traditionally, if we had 40 inbound ships in a week, that was a nice solid week of work. And so, having 70 pilots, you would probably work 3 days, have a couple nights off, work 3 days, have a couple nights off. Because when you're working on the bay that way, you're working a lot of nighttime, right? A lot of nights. So 2 or 3 nights nighttime, it takes a couple days for you to recoup. So it works out pretty well. And that's pretty much what we're working now. And if we are trying to beef up our numbers because we know we're going to have Trade Point Atlantic coming on soon. So work a couple days, couple nights. Yep. So that's how it rolls. Anybody else? Oh, yes, sir.
Question about the very large vessels that you're handling in the blind spots. Is there any video assistance?
Yeah, some vessels will have video, like the cruise ships. It's amazing now, the cruise ships, because people like falling overboard, they actually have like cameras with AI that can notify the bridge team if they think somebody's fallen overboard, right? So that's not normal for most ships. But some of the vessels do have some cameras. I don't see a lot of them up on the bow, but the cruise ships do for sure. And I'm sure as time goes on, there'll be cameras on everything, right? As they go into get into AI and unmanned vessels and everything else. Yep. All right.
Another one from in the chat online. You said the captain of the vessel is in charge. So are you giving instructions to the captain, and is the captain relaying to the helmsperson? Are you talking directly to the helm and the captain is there watching you? What is that chain of command?
So what we normally do when we get on board, we do a master pilot exchange, right? So the captain and I'll talk, like I get up, hey, good morning, captain. I'm your pilot. I'm taking you up to Baltimore. We're going to go to this berth. How is everything on your ship? Is everything working? We kind of go through, there's a checklist. So we just walk on through. Everything working well. Yes, yes, yes. The steering, the propulsion and all that. And then the captain might tell me something particular about his ship. Like, well, this ship, when you go astern, the bow goes to port, not to starboard or something like that. So we'll have those conversations. So, and then what we'll do is I'll say, okay, captain, I've got you. Like he'll say that we're heading, 350 and we're at half a head. And I'll say, okay, I got you. And particularly on the cruise ships, they like to do all this, very formally, and it's all recorded because it's a cruise ship, right there. They like that stuff. But we do it with all the ships. So we'll do a master pilot exchange. I'll take command from the captain. I'm the one in charge of the vessel's movement. And then I give commands to the crew. So I'll tell them to steer a course, or I'll give the engine command to increase or slow down, whatever I need. All right. Shoot, I thought I was gonna get off scot-free here. It's almost 2000.
So,
No, it's fine. You're fine. You're
so
fine.
it was just did a tour of the John Brown. I was talking to the chief engineer, and he mentioned that in his experience, and he wasn't that old, that the quality of ships have decreased. US is not making them. He said where back in the sixties, planned obsolescence was 40 years. He says most of the Asian ships, and that's pretty much where they're almost all being made, they're now down to 20 years and some less. Have you, in your experience, noticed a decrease in the quality of the
Yeah.
big ships?
Yeah, I mean, yes, there's definitely a difference. I can kind of see where they've been built. And it'll be on the pilot card, actually. It'll tell us when it was built and where it was built and everything else. So, yeah, they're not built like they used to be. You know, the training ship that I was on as an officer up at Fort Schuyler, it was an old C4 container or, general cargo ship. And, the hull was still, 8 inches thick or something crazy. Well, not that thick, but it was still good, right? And nowadays you get on ships and they're 20 years old and they're pretty long in the tooth. However, there's some really well-built ships out there. The North Europeans do a pretty good job. So some of those, like the car ships, they'll be built. And Millennius is probably my favorite ships, or even more than the passenger ships, because they're just beautiful ships. They got artwork. They've got all sorts of stuff, and they're very, they're set up to really. So they set up a nice navigation bridge, because not everybody thinks about the bridge, really, right? They're thinking about their cargo and making their money, so they don't want to spend the money. So it depends. Yeah. So some owners are good about that. Some owners aren't. They pick their shipyards. Could be, based on several things, what makes them decide to cut costs here or there. But yeah, you do see it. They don't last as long as they used to.
Two more.
Yeah.
Different questions on Zoom. One is range lights. So how much are you using those? And different, has a pilot ever brought in a submarine?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I was trying to go back. That's all right. I was going to show you the range lights. Yeah, we use the range lights a lot. So, yeah, we always use the range. Where we have range lights, we use them. If there's range lights there, we've needed them. Like going through the Rappahannock, that's a big, long stretch, and you're kind of going cross current, and we're meeting big ships, and you definitely want to have that range light. You're just looking at that range light. You want to see that cracked a little, so you're on your side and they're on their side. Because if you don't see the range light and you're meeting somebody, it's not too good. But yeah, we use them a lot. Yep. If we could have a range light in every single stretch, we would have one. If we could get the somebody to pay for them, right? So anyways, yeah, here's the range. You see the range lights right here. They're pretty bright, the white over white. And these two ships are definitely looking at them. Yes.
Is there a difference in piloting the cruise ships from the big cargo ships or any of the others that you?
Yes, they're a little different. I mean, I had the opportunity to work on a cruise ship. So when I first got on there, I always knew not to spill the soup, because the captain used to yell at all of us young officers, "Don't spill the soup." So, so they want to do a nice, easy turn. So what they'll do is often say, we don't want to have more than 10 degrees rate of turn, right? So they have rate of turn indicators and all sorts of stuff, and the helmsman counts out. But if I need to make a turn, I'll just tell them, I gotta put it over a little bit more. You're going to go past 10 degrees. They don't always like that, but yeah, so we try to, you try to accommodate. I don't want to do something against the captain's orders. I mean, they know why they want that. They don't want to have people falling when you heel the ship over. If it's a container ship, I don't worry so much. Cruise ship, I don't want to have anybody get hurt. You have too many land lovers on there. Yeah.
Got a question about anchoring.
going up Don Bay, especially around the Thomas Point to the bridge, even in strong currents, it always appears chain is always straight on down. What kind of scope do you use when you anchor?
Usually just, I mean, it's kind of standard. We'll just tell them like, 5 cables or 5 shots in the water. It's mud there. It's good holding ground in Annapolis. It's, some of the best. Only time that, the times that we've had the heavy winds and we've anchored a lot of like hurricanes coming or tropical storms. It's the big container ships and the cruise ships that have a hard time. So we'll have to steam them. But usually the cargo vessels, they'll just, especially a lot of them are bulkers, the majority that of course, now we've gotten more into anchoring some of the container vessels, but they lay pretty nicely there at Annapolis. And so you almost always just see the chain because there's a nice, you laid down 5 shots. So it's laying on the bottom, holding them pretty well. Yep.
Wrote this down a while ago. This has been great. In the example of ordering the tugboat when it was over 25 knots and the captain had told you that's what they wanted, who pays for the tugboat? Just curious.
They do. The cruise ship. Yep. They pay for that. Yeah. Sometimes they get a little, sometimes the captain doesn't want to have to and all this, but at the end of the day, that's the pilot's call. That's if they want to, and there's usually good reason. Sometimes, the captains are under the misimpression that, the tugboat's this exorbitant cost. And I'm always like, Captain, it's really not that much money to prevent you from having damage to your ship, which will be much worse. So yeah. That's it. Did I survive? All right. Good.
Thank you so much, Beth. That was amazing. Yeah, it's really great to have you back. All right. Hillary, are you able to go to the next slide? Because it's time for you all to bring out your blue tickets. Everybody remember, got a blue ticket? It was the door prize. Yes. Time to dig those out. Everybody should have one. And we're going to ask Beth, if you would draw the all of them. This is all of them. Yep. Yep. But hold on for a second. Don't announce it yet because I'm going to ask Joel to come up. But you pull it out and we'll wait. Yep. Okay. So Joel is from Oasis Marina, Lighthouse Point. And he is going to tell us just a couple words about what the door prize is and this amazing marina that he has that I stayed in last year for 4th of July, and it was awesome. So, all right.
Thank you. So we've got a little Lighthouse Point goodie bag here filled with lots of good swag and a complimentary transient night stay with us. So we're the non-derelict marina in the harbor. Oh, there is. Brand new, everything's brand new at Lighthouse Point, floating docks, all composite decking, in-slip pump outs, and the list goes on and on. But we oftentimes have boaters, new boaters especially, asking us about training captains and delivery captains and things of that nature. So this is a great resource for us to be able to point our boaters in the right direction. So we're happy to support CAPCA and happy to be able to attend. So yeah, there we go. Thank you. Oh, yeah, I gotta get my glasses out here. I think probably just the last 3, I'm guessing. Yep. Last 3, 1, 0, 2. Oh, gotta be present to win, right? Huh. We got a winner.
Well, that is well deserved.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joel. Thank you. And a hand for Joel and Lighthouse Point Marina. They gave us our door prize tonight and also in January. So thank you very much. And it is a wonderful marina to stay at. All right. You are free to go. Just want you to take a look and remember what we have coming up. And thank you all very much for being here. Oh, yes. On your tables are there's some white pages. If you have any suggestions and want to give us feedback for tonight, please do. And we look forward to taking your suggestions and making this better and better. Thank you so much.